Speaker Sheldon Silver will be sentenced on federal corruption charges. Silver was convicted in November of using his powerful position to line his pockets with roughly $4 million. Capitol reporter Kimberly Howard is live outside the federal courthouse in Manhattan right now. Kimberly, what's going on now?
Well, and we haven't seen Sheldon Silver arrive just yet, but many of the people walking around these rain-soaked streets were his constituents. This was Sheldon Silver's lower Manhattan district for nearly 40 years. These were the people that he served. And now today, as you mentioned, he will be sentenced inside that federal courthouse in just about 2 hours now. Now, keep in mind that the prosecution has asked the judge to sentence Silver to 14 years, not only citing his crimes, but the corrupt tone they say he set in Albany by abusing his position of power. We also know the judge can consider court documents which weren't presented at trial but were recently unsealed. These documents detail 2 alleged extramarital affairs the prosecution says Silver had with 2 women. One of them a lobbyist, the other a woman prosecutors say Silver got a government job for. Now, Silver's defense attorneys have called those claims salacious and unproven, and they've asked the judge for leniency. Citing the 72-year-old Democrat's age and his health, Silver is battling prostate cancer, which killed both his father and his brother. Now, it's up to the judge how much weight she'll place on all of that, so it should be interesting on what happens today in court. Of course, we'll keep you posted as the story continues to develop, but for now, we're live in Manhattan. Kimberly Howard, CBS 6 News.
One of the famed 3 men in the room will spend up to 12 years in a prison cell.
Former Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver learned his fate in just the past 90 minutes.
Let's get right to Capitol reporter Kimberly Howard, who's live in Manhattan for us tonight. Kimberly, you were in the courtroom with Silver today. Bring us up to speed.
Yeah, sure, Cody. And it wasn't just in the courtroom, but outside the courtroom, which was pretty incredible. These streets here behind me simply swarmed with the media and even other people who Silver represented. One woman in particular shouting at him, saying that she didn't think that this 12-year prison sentence was enough. I want to show you what I'm talking about right now. Take a look at this video. You could just see how crazy it was. Silver trying to get out of the side door of the courthouse, looking like he was almost laughing at the number of people and cameras crowding his way. And the swarm didn't stop there. Reporters following him until he was able to get into a taxi a block down from that side courthouse door that he exited out of after receiving that sentence. Now, in court, attorneys for both the prosecution and the defense had a lot they wanted the judge to consider before she announced her sentence. The prosecution saying that the pair of corrupt schemes Silver ran not only showed greed because he lined his own pockets with millions of dollars. The prosecution saying that this whole process, though, has made the public cynical about government in general. Now, the defense, of course, countered all that, saying that the judge should be lenient, cited the 72-year-old's age and his health. Silver then making his own statement to the judge saying, quote, "I've let down my family. I've let down my constituents. I'm truly, truly sorry." His defense attorneys are vowing to appeal. Take a listen.
We plan to appeal, and the judge gave us a period of time with which to ask for bail pending appeal, and we'll pursue that within, I think it's May 10th, I think she said.
And Silver has been asked to surrender by July 1st. Back to you guys in the studio.
Kimberly, it's not just prison time we're talking about here either, but a hefty fine as well. What did the judge impose?
Yeah, and she imposed a $1.75 million fine. That she hoped would be a deterrent, to serve as a deterrent from other politicians perhaps who were thinking of engaging in this type of corrupt scheme. He also must pay more than $5 million in restitution. A lot of that money in terms of the fine, $1.5 million of it, in fact, he's going to have to pay by June before he's expected to surrender in July. So certainly a lot of money, a difficult day for Sheldon Silver as he got into that taxi cab. We'll have much more on reaction and what is next for the former Assembly Speaker who has now fallen from grace coming up in later newscasts. But for now, we're live in Manhattan. Kimberly Howard, CBS 6 News.
Following the very latest, Kimberly, thank you.
The judge sentences former State Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver to 12 years in prison.
Silver is convicted for taking millions of dollars in bribes and kickbacks while in office. Let's get straight to Capitol reporter Kimberly Howard, who was in court in Manhattan today. Kimberly, what was it like?
Well, and in Cody, it was a crazy situation, not just in court, but mostly outside of court when the media swarmed Sheldon Silver as he came out a side door of the courthouse and surrounded him until he got into a taxi cab actually right just beyond these barricades here. I want to show you what I'm talking about, this media frenzy that ensued. Kind of a familiar scene, actually, that we've been seeing because of these convictions with both former Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver and with Dean Skelos months ago, back in December. A much more serious Silver we saw in court previously, as attorneys for both the prosecution and the defense laid out what they wanted the judge to consider. The prosecution saying that the pair of corrupt schemes Silver ran not only showed greed, but made the public cynical about government in general. The defense countering that the judge should be lenient, citing the 72-year-old's age and his health, pointing out that he has been battling prostate cancer. Silver then making his own statement to the judge saying, quote, "I've let down my family, I've let down my constituents, I'm truly sorry." His defense attorneys are vowing to appeal. Now, Silver has been asked to surrender by July 1st. On top of that 12-year sentence, he is looking at a $1.75 million fine and more than $5 million in restitution. And Cody, back to you.
Kimberly, as we look forward to look ahead to the sentencing here, in which federal prison will Silver serve his time?
You know, Cody, that's one piece of information that we don't know yet. We did not find that out today. In fact, that decision is not left up to the judge who oversaw this trial and that same judge who sentenced him. But she did say that in court that she was going to seriously consider a request on the part of Silver's defense attorneys that he go to Otisville Federal Camp. That's a medium security facility where he would have much more freedom and possibly some better health care as well. We, of course, will have much more for you on this coming up at 6 o'clock. But for now, we're live in Manhattan. Kimberly Howard, CBS 6 News.
Thank you.
Sheldon Silver was sentenced to 12 years in prison this afternoon, a shorter term than prosecutors were seeking in the federal corruption case.
It is a stunning fall. For decades, Silver was one of the most powerful figures in New York State politics.
Capitol reporter Kimberly Howard was at the sentencing today in Manhattan. And Kimberly, I understand that Silver actually apologized in court.
Yeah, he did. He stood up and looked right at the judge and said, "I've let down my family. I've let down my constituents. I'm truly, truly sorry." But that, coupled with more than 100 other letters from people attesting to Silver's good character, were not enough to sway the judge from handing down that sentence that even U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara is calling a stiff one. I want to give you an idea of what happened after Sheldon Silver walked out of court. You can see him there in the doorway, almost laughing at the number of cameras and members of the media that were swarming him, blocking his path. And that swarm didn't stop there. Reporters following him until he was able to get into a taxi a block or so down from the side courthouse door where he exited from. Now, in court, attorneys for both the prosecution and the defense had a lot they wanted the judge to consider before she announced her sentence. The prosecution saying that the pair of corrupt schemes Silver ran not only shows greed because it helped him line his pockets with millions of dollars, but this whole conviction, the prosecution says, has made the public cynical about government in general. The defense, of course, countering that, saying that the judge should be lenient, citing the 72-year-old's age and his health. Now, his defense attorneys are vowing to appeal, and they're also hoping Silver can be sent to Otisville Federal Prison Camp when he surrenders on July 1st. It's a place that will give Silver more freedom than a federal prison and probably better health care.
Appealing to the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. That's just what we've requested. We think that's the appropriate facility.
Silver must also pay $1.75 million in fines, as well as more than $5 million in restitution. The judge made a point of saying that she hopes that this stiff sentence and those high fines will be a deterrent for future politicians who may be thinking about getting into corruption. We're live in Manhattan. Kimberly Howard, CBS 6 News.
All right, thank you very much, Kimberly. A federal judge has sentenced Sheldon Silver, once one of the most powerful politicians in New York, to 12 years in prison.
This is most definitely a dramatic fall for the former Assembly Speaker, and Kimberly Howard was in federal court for the sentencing. She joins us live now from Manhattan. Kimberly?
Liz and Greg, things have died down quite a bit since that sentence was handed down a few hours ago. The media had swarmed the streets here near the courthouse just hours ago. Take a look at what we're talking about, at all the craziness that was going on just as Sheldon Silver was trying to exit the side door of the courthouse, almost laughing at a number of people and the number of people and cameras that were crowding his way, and that swarm, it did not stop there. Reporters following him until he was able to get into a taxi a block or so from the side courthouse door there. A much more serious situation in court, though, as attorneys and both the prosecution and the defense had a lot to say about what they wanted the judge to consider before she announced her sentence. The prosecution saying that the pair of corrupt schemes Silver ran not only showed greed because he lined his pockets with millions of dollars, but that this whole process has made the public as a whole cynical about government in general. The defense countering that, of course, saying that the judge should be lenient, citing the 72-year-old's age and his health, pointing out that he has been battling prostate cancer, which killed both his father and his brother. Silver then making his own statement to the judge saying, "I've let down my family, I've let down my constituents, I'm truly, truly sorry." His defense attorneys are vowing to appeal. Take a listen.
We plan to appeal, and the judge gave us a period of time to ask for bail pending appeal, and we'll pursue that within, I think it's May 10th, I think she said.
Now, Silver has been asked to surrender on July 1st. He must also pay a $1.75 million fine. Much of that fine he'll have to pay by June. He also must pay more than $5 million in restitution. The judge making a point of saying that she hopes that this stiff sentence will be a deterrent for other politicians who may consider leaving a life of corruption. We are live in Manhattan. Kimberly Howard, CBS 6 News.
All right, Kimberly, thank you very much.